How's it going, losers? And a bit of a different look today because I've just finished recording my Instagram videos for the week, and literally after the last one I've realised that my mic had been muted the full time. Not only that, but the mic's now almost out of battery. So I'm basically on the backup camera and I've pretty much just wasted the last few hours of my life.
Uh-oh, retard alert!
But the other day I was on a webinar that was talking about the traits of somebody who's successful in business, and I thought, why not do the training version of it? And these aren't just going to be exclusively for training in the gym and in a sport, but also just pretty much all areas of your life, with your work, with your business, with your relationships with people. So take these from a training point of view, but also you should be trying to apply them into other areas of your life. I'm in a bad mood, so I'm not going to tell you to like and subscribe, because if this is the first time you've watched me and you're not subscribed, then me being a moany bastard isn't going to make you any more likely to subscribe. So come back another day when I'm cheery and then subscribe. And the reason that I'm qualified to talk about this, I think, is because I've got to a pretty decent standard of training myself, both in the gym in terms of my strength and my physique, but also in sports as well, having been British champion in 2 different sports and been an international competitor and been around a lot of international competitors at the top level, Olympic medalists, world champions. You kind of get to see clear and obvious what makes somebody successful. So first thing that's going to make you successful with your training is being organised. And a successful person doesn't just like wake up on a Monday and be like, right, okay, let's see, when am I getting to the gym this week? Where's my food? Is there some in the fridge? Oh, do I just need to make do with anything? Am I just going to like cram sessions in? Like, no, they have a clear, structured plan with their timings of things and their organisation, and they don't just wing it. They'll have their sessions in a routine that doesn't really move much, and if it does, it's always planned in advance, and they're probably always going to have the food they need either prepared or not too far off being prepared and on hand in their house, rather than just scrambling throughout the day trying to just eat anything or just hoping that they can find the food that they need falling out of a tree or something like that. They don't leave it up to a 1 in a million chance that everything just sorts itself out. They just like make sure it is, and they're organised and they're planning in advance and they get stuff done. The next thing you need to be successful is consistent, and that is consistent across the board. It's consistent with making your training sessions, it's consistent with pushing yourself appropriately in those sessions, staying on your food and not just having like a few half decent days or weeks and then just sacking the whole thing off. It's that consistency that compounds over time that's actually going to get you lifting heavier weights, building more muscle, losing more fat, getting better at your sport and winning more competitions. It's not just doing little one-offs here and there.
Shite.
And really, without consistency, you've got nothing. And that consistency especially applies to when you can't be bothered. And it's all well and good just turning up to your sessions when everything's all great and rosy and it's easy, or like you're feeling motivated to do so, but it's even more important in going and turning up and pushing hard and doing what needs to be done, even when you can't be particularly arsed. So make sure that you are always turning up, doing what you need to do, regardless of how you feel. The next thing that the big and strong guys with amazing physiques do is making sure that they're putting in just as much focus and attention on what they're doing outside of the gym as inside of the gym. And obviously, you know, gym's probably priority number 1 and actually turning up, doing the training and working hard. But you've got to remember how much of your actual week and the time that that actually accounts for. In terms of a percentage, you're maybe going to be looking at, I don't know, 10%, not even 10% of your week. You're probably looking at maybe like 5% of your week.
Quick maths.
But if you're just pissing about and half-arsing with everything else outside of your training time, then you're just really putting yourself a leg down, and I don't even know if that's a fucking saying. If you're not prioritising your nutrition, if you're not making sure that you're getting proper recovery and sleep, if you're just like thinking, oh, I'll just train and that'll be it, then
I've got some bad news.
But I would go as far as to say is the people who do make the biggest changes and continue to improve over time and get to the highest levels, they very much view their training and whatever it is as a lifestyle. And you don't have to go like full on high rocks and like have your top off 24/7 and just running about like a little girl and talking about being in the trenches and all that stuff. It should be something that, you know, doesn't like mean you do it every single second of your life, but it should just be underpinning everything that you're doing and the way that you behave. Something else that somebody successful won't do is make excuses. I mean, things don't go to plan, whether it be something that's out with your control or something that just hasn't really just went as well as you would have liked. They don't make excuses, they look for solutions, because it's easy to just sit around and say, oh, I didn't make my session because of this, or I done that lift bad because of that, or I was tired of this or that. Even if there's some like validity to what you're saying, like, it still doesn't count for anything. It still doesn't mean like you've actually went and like got the lift or had the good session or whatever it is. You're still just like, you've just still never done it, and you might have an excuse to make yourself feel better, but
nobody cares, mate.
Nobody cares, mate. Nobody fucking cares, mate.
what you're much better off doing is looking for the solutions and looking at how you can minimise the chance of you missing the session, having a poor performance, falling off your food. Again, it's all about just looking to improve, and even when things don't go to plan, you can still hopefully learn and find a way to improve within that. The next two are sort of interlinked together. I think it would be called a dichotomy. But if you want to be as successful as you can with your training, you need to have a willingness to learn and be open to try new things, not just sticking to your kind of same old try and true, and just trying to find kind of ways to actually improve what you're doing. And the odds are, if you're kind of been training for like 2, 3, 4 years, you're probably not going to have everything figured out and have everything as good as it otherwise could be. So be open to learning, be open to trying new things, different approaches to training, different techniques, different splits, all that type of thing. The more you try, eventually you will find a way, and the best way for you. And you might stumble across it from kind of the early days of your training, if you're lucky, but you might have to go through a few cycles of trial and error, and that's okay. And just don't be so stuck in your ways that you're never willing to like try anything new. On the other hand, however, to be successful, you can't go and like chase trends and like flip-flop your approach. And I see this all the time where somebody's doing a specific style of training or whatever, and it's getting going for a wee while, and then all of a sudden they're like on to the next thing, and they've never actually seen the first thing through and kind of actually understood how good or bad it was.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
And obviously to today's day and age with TikTok and social media and all the rest of it, it's the biggest one where it's like, oh, I've seen this new exercise, I'm going to start doing this, or oh, so-and-so told me I shouldn't do this exercise, or they should do exercise, or I should be eating this food, and they just go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and I've been interrupted. Dad! Oh, hi Andy. There we go, somebody's come to do some work in HQ because we're extending it, and I've now been punted out, and I'm not making excuses, I'm still finishing off the video just out here in the garden. I feel like I left that last bit on not just flip-flopping and just constantly chopping and changing your approach, so don't do that. Now, something that every single successful trainer has in common is that they have absolutely mastered the basics. And I'll see this all the time where people will want to try and do all this fancy, complicated stuff, exercises, training splits, and they try and do that without actually having like the just basic fundamental stuff nailed. And the basics I suppose look slightly different in a few different ways, but again, it's like pointless like trying to do like a one-armed cable fucking bench press thing when you struggle to do an actual barbell bench. And the best example of this is if you take high-level powerlifters, where they literally do your basic squat, deadlift and bench press year round, never take it out of their program, and look how strong and muscular. Some of them do get obviously very, very fat and gimpy. Look how strong and muscular that they get. Basics are going to undermine every single thing you do. So before you start looking at all the fancy, complicated stuff, get the basics mastered, nailed, and make sure that they stay nailed, and try not to lose sight of that, because again, I think when you do get a little bit more advanced in training, you kind of have that urge to start kind of venturing out and doing all the complicated stuff and trying to be all fancy, and I've done that before.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And after a while I realised, you know what? None of this just works as well, and there's a reason that the basics in terms of exercises, how to train, the reason that's been around forever. Now, the next thing I'll probably say is different to what a lot of other people will say. So you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, to be successful, you need to stay positive and have a positive outlook. And I don't disagree with that, but I don't necessarily agree with that. And the way that I would rather put it is that most successful people are level-headed. And what I mean by that is they don't let the lows get them down too much, and they never get themselves like too disappointed and depressed and like dwell on things, and they're able to, when they do have setbacks, just kind of brush them aside and move on pretty quickly. But on the flip side as well, what I see is they don't let the highs get too high, because what that does is that leads to complacency and it leads to just maybe slacking that little bit and not having that same determination and drive. So even if you go through the best period ever where you're training and you hit all these amazing PBs and your physique's the best ever, like, be happy with it and obviously be positive about it, but don't like blow smoke up your own arse too much and get complacent, because there's always another level for you to go to. And I could relate it so well to sports, and everybody could just pull somebody off the top of their head where they get to the top of the mountain and then they start slacking off, get complacent, and then it all comes crashing down. Try and keep yourself level-headed, don't dwell on the lows too much, and don't get too much of a stoner at the highs too much. Something else that a successful trainer will be is patient and not just desperate to look for like short-term wins and quick fixes, and they're willing to play the long game. It's not just like, oh, how much weight can I lift next week? It's not, how can I plan things out? So I'm obviously lifting a little bit more weight next week, but that's going to lead to me lifting even more weight next month, even more weight next year, building more muscle week and month and year on year, winning and making the improvements in your sport week and month and year in year, not just like quick fixes to like scrape by at a competition or tournament or whatever. You can't just like look for the easiest, quickest way to like get a little bit of success. You need to be patient enough to see the long-term plan through, and obviously you need to have that delayed gratification and be willing to accept that you're not going to be the finished product anytime soon really, and it's going to be in literally years down the line. And again, just because you're not going to get to the shredded 90 kilo, 250 kilo deadlifting physique that you want, you just say,
Get the fuck out of here.
it's going to take too long. It's like, no, you see the long-term vision and you stick to it. It's pointless just like thinking that everything's going to be solved overnight, because it won't. And obviously the more patient you can be, the longer you can go and the better you're going to be. Now the next couple are also interlinked, and I'm deliberately going to make sure I'm not finishing on this because I know the way that it's probably going to come across. But the first thing, but one of the big traits that successful people do have is that they don't view spending money as a crux, but they see it as an investment. And obviously you might think that, oh, I'm more than capable of just like going into a pure gym and training and doing my own training plan and going to the shop and buying like whatever food, and like I don't need to spend money on it. And like, yeah, technically you don't need to spend money, but the odds are if you want to be better at something, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit of money. And just think of the two football teams and coming out the transfer window. Like, do you think Celtic could give themselves a better chance of success by spending like flipping 10 million off the 80 million that they've got in the bank, or if they were to go and spend 20, 30, 40 million?
It's a bit of a weird analogy.
And obviously there's a multitude of things you can spend money on, and there's probably not any one thing that is an absolute like must do. And for a lot of people it just depends on where you want to spend your money, but you could be spending your money on going and training in a better gym, investing in equipment for yourself, making sure that you're buying better quality food, potentially educational resources, going on lifting workshops, that type of thing, buying supplements, which probably bottom of the list to be Flair, because unless it's Tren you're buying, then they're probably not going to make like a night and day difference. But my point being is that the odds are the more money that you spend and invest, the more you're probably going to get back. And that obviously ties into the one thing that you can spend money on that supersedes all of that and will increase your chances of being successful 20-fold, and that is investing in a coach. And I don't want to make that big a point about this, and I've had it all before. Well, I know how to train, I don't need a coach.
Right.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying that you do, but if you want more success, and you probably do, and that's why probably anybody that you know or look at, whether it just be somebody at a really high like level of just recreational training, or if it's like a high level kind of athlete, they all pretty much have a coach. And I have a coach, and that's why I've fortunately was able to be coached for like the first 6 years off my lifting in the gym, and that's how I was able to develop so much knowledge and be on the right track a lot earlier than I otherwise would have. And obviously I was coached loads through judo and had the opportunity to work with some really good coaches, and now when I'm competing in jiu-jitsu, the whole reason that I've been doing relatively well in that is because I've got a fucking brilliant coach. And I've even heard some people say like, oh, he's got a coach butt, and it's like, well, you can go and do the same, you know. And I know you're probably going to talk about the money and this and that, but at the end of the day, you can bullshit yourself all you want. We both know you could if you really wanted to and wanted to prioritise, or you could certainly do that with me anyway. And I really don't believe that if you were to have me as your coach, that would be you living on food rations for the rest of the month.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
And also just a wee FYI about investing in money that technically you don't have to. I spend £600 a month on help for my business and have done for like the last 2 years now. And I could tell you even more money that I've invested before that and other little bits and pieces ongoing, but that's the help that I currently invest in. And that's because I view that as priority number one and I want to get as much out of it as I can. And lo and behold, that money that I originally invested and continue to invest has earned itself back. But anyway, I don't want to make this a big whole call to action with coaching. So I'm going to leave you with the most important trait, and you know what's coming, and that's you need to work fucking hard. All the best guys work the hardest. It's as simple as that. And the way that anybody gets better is by working harder. So again, you're never going to just like train smarter, not harder, and get like all these amazing results and get so strong and jacked and muscular and bitches. The harder you work, the more of that you're going to get. And no one can ever cheat hard work. Anybody who says otherwise is bullshitting you. So just make sure that you're working hard and continually to push yourself more and more and more. And so it's going to give you the best success. Anyway, grumpy shit is a way to take a grumpy shit that's a pre-workout shit that I don't even think is going to be a pre-workout shit because I can't train, so it's technically just a shit from pre-workout. Like, subscribe, bye.